Okay, so our original prediction, right, pretty much from Tuesday was, I think it was AU that I didn't have like a full-on bias for, but DXY we had pretty much concluded that we were looking at our overall swing trend to be to the upside, and we were seeing the reaction from the inefficiency fill plus turbulence point, which created a new high. And we're now seeing that, start to play out. And I do see that bullish bias much better now. Sorry guys, somebody was calling me. Anyways, what we were saying with DXY last time was that the daily inefficiency, and we were potentially seeing what could happen from the bearish internal trend, see if anything could happen based on the POI. The POI gave the initial reaction that then led into an order flow disruption, but this, right, can also be seen as continuation BOS, which solidifies your internal range, and that could also be interpreted in that way. Therefore, whatever happens right after here is realistically what we're seeing determine the bias of either continuation to the downside or continuation to the upside. So that could be interpreted in that way as well. But back to this, right after the order flow disruption, we see, right, a sort of discount, more so looks like equilibrium, play out here, right? So because this internal discount off of another turbulence point, right, this doesn't necessarily make this bullish. This transition here makes a lot more sense as to why this is now seeing bullish moves, right? You could see, right, that was low was taken out, high was taken out, and you can see the conversion there. But what's much more important to note now is that this now signifies internal unwillingness here. This is now pretty much a solidified low. We're probably bottomed out now. I don't see this, like, let's say bouncing here into the downside. I do not see that. We have already seen a failure to go lower once, twice, and we've already solidified the range in terms of high, low, retracement, unwillingness, break of structure, which is why I'm kind of now leaning towards much more of a bullish sense. And this is now when we can start targeting, previous highs here, just because of the structural level that we are referring to being our swing structure here. So that shows that bias for that. I do see myself, or I do see this, really exploding if it is going to hit that bias, especially due to the initial catalyst being this news move here, the NFP. AU, I still don't necessarily have a full-on bias with it, even though now we are seeing right, bearish breaks of structure. So realistically, we are looking at the continuation to the downside. But as we said on Tuesday, even though we didn't have a full-on bias, we were more so seeing what could happen from, right, the premium here. And as you can see, if we extend those lines out, that's pretty much what we got. Was this Thursday? This was Thursday. So Thursday, and then you can see that move start to fully, show itself. So that was a pretty cool prediction. EU. All right, I'm gonna actually zoom out a little bit more for this one. Now, cool, what we're seeing is, I don't remember exactly if we had predicted a type of area for this, but what I'm seeing now, we already talked about the accumulation potential here, but then we also talked about, the high effort that resulted in barely breaking, relative equal highs. That then led into an overall liquidity grab, which occurred, I believe the second was Tuesday. Yeah, this happened right before the call, I believe. But now that we're seeing, right, a premium into now probably converting into more of a discount, we are probably going to see, right, at least, right, this major this intraday low be taken out. This is the last low that took into the high. That has a bearish model forming. So I do see this realistically showing us much more downside and taking out previous intraday structures. But other than that, it seems that Tuesday's bias is really starting to play out from DXY bias. But we will see what happens over the next week or so, especially because it does look like we're closing pretty bullish this week. Yeah, very, very bullish. Bullish engulfing. This could legitimately explode from here. But yeah, does anybody have any questions? That was pretty quick today. Any questions? I just want to see that that internal finally solidified. DXY super sketch right now. I think it's finally shown its hand, bro. I just think it used to this week to really emphasize that, especially if we're gonna look at this from every possible scenario. We do see a liquidity grab there, right? We do see liquidity grab here, right? Then there, obviously. So it does look like we will see that bullish bias. Yep, I do see what you're seeing here. The only thing that's bothering me, just based on here, the only thing that's bothering me is that and this. That's the only thing that's bothering me with that bearish bias. Because I do see what you're saying. You're talking about this wick here. And I think this could be a type of catalyst that'll bring us lower. But however, if we get a bullish transition here from a scalp time frame, since this is more of a minor major intraday, this will probably dictate, you know, where we'll go up or we'll go down. And an example of that would probably be here. Here, where it's super choppy, but bullish liquidity grab, right? And there is a discount, even though it's super choppy. And your invalidation would be at the low, but I do see what you're saying. Cool. Does anybody else have any questions? I like that dotted line there. That looks nice. Very elegant. Yeah, I don't like having anything on my charts. The only reason why I keep these drawings, on here is just so you guys can see and we can review the notes that we had on Tuesday. That's pretty much the main reason why I have these. Especially because we're more than likely seeing predictions play out, blah, blah, blah. Like this one. That one's pretty nice. What is this POI here? I don't understand that POI. H8. Okay, what am I seeing? First, I'd like to see what this POI is. Yeah, go ahead. All right, wait, let's get to Nico's charts first, and then we'll get to yours. We'll go Nico, Andre, Dominic. All right, Nico, I'm waiting on you. About the entry today. Okay. If we're gonna go, let me zoom into this. If we're gonna go based on management, 1, the entry, 2, the management, 3, the result. So 1, we've already analyzed that we're bearish. Yeah, I was gonna point that out. The only relative points of interest that point out or look anything in terms of attractiveness is 1 and 2. That's the only thing that really looks attractive to me. 1, turbulence point, 2, order flow continuation, alongside taking out liquidity there, pretty much. So, right, based on POI, let me have to change the color for this. You see the reaction, therefore this being your invalidation here. So your realistic entry would have probably been this. So probably, yeah, you're right here. That is your break-even point. It is already a little choppy. So 1, before we even continue, the reaction based on the initial move up, momentum is definitely not to the ups, to the downside there. So that's already alert number 1. But when you're managing this, for example, now you have to reference the counter the POI, which is there, and that's not necessarily too significant. What's significant is this here. I'll do this in red. 1, 2. That is a bullish liquidity grab. So 1, you could either close your scenario and just protect your capital because the scenario is now not necessarily too clear, or 2, you can focus on a hedge. The hedge, right, would then break even at the high, and once that starts to see the failure, then that would be closed out. But either way, you shouldn't be having any losses here. You should be having, if anything, 1 break even, at most 2 break evens. But 2, this is M1, and you're seeing choppy structure, right? So this is not necessarily a realistic scenario as to why this should be a high or a highly probable bearish scenario. So I would say 1, look at the choppiness that's already covering momentum. Momentum is probably key here. But the entry itself was right. It's just the management then was wrong if you broke even there. But since you broke even here, realistically, I could have broken even here. The invalidation would have been the same, but the only reason that would have made me close this was the bullish liquidity grab. Yeah, the LG to the upside is your reason to just exit out, because that's showing, and you know what that shows. So yeah, the entry, cool. The management, the only reason you should have closed here was this. Right, because I don't think we broke the original POI, did we? No, we did not. So if you're playing based on POI, the invalidation was never met. So just really Let's see. You're pointing this out, right? You're pointing that out, but why aren't you pointing this out? And why aren't you pointing this out? And why aren't you pointing these out? Because at the end of the day, you have a high into a low based on your POI, but you're referencing this, which is no man's land. You're failing to form a high and you're failing to form a low. So realistically, any scenario here is just not favorable because you're stuck within the range. Right, so like we said, the entry was good. The management, this would have been your reason to close, right? And then here, and then here, and then now you're here. This is no man's land because you're failing to form a new high or a new low after multiple attempts. So yeah, I wouldn't chase that scenario, bro. You gotta recognize no man's land. Yeah, super choppy. Okay, we can go to Andre now. 1, 2. Okay, 1. We know where our trend is. Structure, continuation BOS, solidifies the range. We now see this solidifies the high. So you're looking for a bearish scenario, okay. Something to note here, high, low into high. These only solidify the range. So yeah, let's see what happens after this. What are you showing me? Okay, what am I seeing here? Oh, he lost connection. Okay, he lost connection.
Bro, you want me to share my screen real quick?
No, hold on. Andre lost connection. He's back in now.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I think he's loading back in. Andre, are you with us? Yes or no?
Yeah, bro, I'm with you guys. Don't go ahead because I was just saying what I saw this morning. Get your opinion on it because I just want to make sure that what I saw was coinciding of everything you just said. The only thing that had me hesitant right now is the fact that how price action is right now on the lower time frames working its way back to the high. Because I do on the smaller time frames we are still bullish, but just waiting for a clearer transition so to get a short to take it to follow the higher time frame trend.
Yeah, it makes sense. The only thing is here what I'm looking at is momentum. So you would need a pretty clear transition here. So I wouldn't, in a perfect scenario, this is still bullish. Realistically, I'd like to see a model form. This, you're just picking a high here. It can work, yes, but I'm just saying it's technically picking out a high.
I got it, bro.
Yeah. Cool. All right. If you want to share your screen, go ahead. Let me see if I check the settings. There you go.
All right, cool. You can see my screen. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, yeah, no. The reason why I'm saying I was so conflicted, obviously with DXY, because as we know now, we obviously noted the turbulence point here, which we're getting that reaction to. Obviously, we got the reaction here, but as far as playing the internal, obviously, like I kind of showed you, I had that POI mark, so we solidified this internal range. But from the counter bias, like you said, with the buy bias, which I pointed this out in the Discord, this mitigation, obviously we have low, high, came back POI, and then once the POI got hit, we intraday shifted bullish, we had the reaction, but this internal is still just very suspect just because I just feel like I don't know if we're really, it's just like why are we melting so hard once we hit that turbulence point, you know what I mean? So once we hit that turbulence point, it's just like understanding like the true mitigations of where price actually wants to go. And so now all of a sudden, isn't it just weird how we have like the monkeypox and all of this is starting to come up now, and we like hit that turbulence point, and that's like a catalyst for the dollar to fall. Even with like EURUSD, like we obviously have that turbulence point there, even on the 10-day. You can see, and then once we hit the turbulence point, we shifted, like obviously that solidifies this range, this break here, but it's just no coincidence that we just start hitting major POI, we're shifting, and now we're just consolidating all within this range. So correlating EU and DXY, the reason why I'm like kind of conflicted on the setup, like I was telling you, is because obviously internal range solidified here. And for the opposite bias with EU, we could look at this as, yes, this could be a solidified range after this break, and we could expect to go lower. But at the same time, this could be, we would want to see unwillingness. We could potentially get some type of unwillingness down here, and we react to something down here and continue to go higher, which would align with align with that DXY internal range solidify. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's just like until this is really truly broken, because even if this POI doesn't work, this internal range still would be intact, and we still could use this wick here. So that's why it's just like a little bit conflicting, and then just understanding where we're actually coming from. You know what I mean? So it's just a bit conflicting.
I definitely see what you're saying. Hold on, let me share screen real quick. I think, let me see. I think the same thing in terms of from a principle standpoint that I pointed out with this scenario, with Andre's scenario. It's that like you're saying, we're here, right? We can only play based on the internal views that we have now, and we don't know exactly what will happen after a significant liquidity point has been taken. So as of now, right, the bias is bearish because of the technicals that I showed you, but your bias can easily come into play after, let's say, we take this out and now we see a reaction. Now we can formulate a bullish bias, and now that will be in alignment with your move. So yes, it's entirely possible. It's just the only thing that I'm looking to note right now is, right, the bearish overall liquidity grab into the premium, which is now showing high momentum. And now the minor intraday and the scalp should realistically come take us into the liquidity point. And after the liquidity point, we have zero clue what can happen. Zero clue. Just in like, for example, another scenario where, you know, we did fit that bullish narrative that you're talking about was here, where you see the bullish order flow disruption, which is now in alignment with your first bias and your whole, you know, overall general bias, and then you see the internal move here into the POI, and that, right, is technically bullish based on the internal stance. However, once we reach the liquidity point, which is here at relative equal highs, after this, we could not make a general view or a general bias that this will fly from here because of our internal bias. You see what I mean? So yes, you can mention right, the POI that we had been talking about, which is, yes, it is valid, especially now that we're seeing the internal reaction. However, there's two internal scenarios here. There's one, because that's your position. Two, there's your swing, and then there's your minor major intraday, which are coincided together. So as of now, I still argue the bearish bias in terms of the short medium term, but after we reach a liquidity point, or if we are to break a significant high here, then I will convert my bias into you know, your bullish overall bias. And the reason why I'm like that is because when you're talking about massive moves like this, not only does it take time, but it takes a reasonable transition for that to actually show itself, right? Because at the end of the day, we can have the bias right, but we can have the timing wrong, and that can cause us to have a ton of losses or unnecessary losses. So that's why I tend to play based on the internal. And then if we convert, when I have that, you know, your bias in the back of my head, then I can formulate a rational decision as to why this should now be bullish. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Let me screen share one more time to go fast, because some people will be like, why would you, somebody would be like, why would you take, you guys can see my screen? All right, yeah,
yes.
All right. Somebody would be like, realistically, why are you taking a trade right here? Let's just say hypothetically price came down, took liquidity, did an LG, and boom, boom. Or say, let's just say realistically, it didn't even give it an LG. It came down to this zone, gave a transition, and then broke to the upside, which would make this internal unwillingness. You know what I mean? So I guess the main thing I'm trying to want to get at is just like internal ranges within consolidation can be very tricky. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, of course, especially because technically we are from a major intraday stance, we are in no man's land because we felt a new low and a new high. So yeah, I definitely see that.
But I do get what you're saying as far as just like understanding higher time frame narrative still intact, that this makes the most sense and this makes the most sense as well.
Yeah. Like the main, also another reason why I'm looking towards that, at least so we can take out previous liquidity, is one, we have, like you said, the bullish break of structure here, but then we also have this as well.
Right.
So that's why I'm at least assuming that we will at least reach a previous low, unless, you know, we convert and, you know, take that out.
Right. And then just for people who are in Zoom, I wanted to show, I kind of posted this in the thing, but it was USD-JPY. I just like peeped this. So obviously higher time frame narrative, we have the whole entire bearish leg solidified after this. So range solidified, internal liquidity took, we come back into the POI. This is a wick that took out liquidity. And then this is why I feel like Kos was, when he was picking this, I don't know where we were at. I think he literally caught entry literally all the way up here when we had, I was like, why is he trying to sell there? Which is very aggressive, but like from that monthly fill, obviously we broke structure here. If we go to the 4 hour, we can see structure broke here. And then we filled, mitigate 50%. We made a new low, and we just now finally solidified the range with this intraday. If you want to consider that or that, either or, that solidified the entire range. And now we're in a premium of that overall range. And now what do we have here? We have turbulence points. And then if you want to get into very deep refinements, obviously the last bullish buy before sell candle as a potential POI, then I have lower time frame. So this one's you guys should pay attention to this, because this could lead to a massive move. But obviously from the opposite bias, we can see leg solidified, reacted to a turbulence point, I believe.
Yeah, you're right. And also go to that H1 again. The only thing that I would say negates that is this. Right, this is already a failed bearish reaction, which then broke. So this, even if this is a valid POI, I would still argue that you should look for the the bullish scenario as well. This could be right, but I'm also focusing on if this can have another bullish scenario.
For sure, and I do have like if we come back and fill inefficiency there, and the only reason why this like doesn't make sense to me, this break which is because we never solidified any types of range, even on intraday time frame. What is
yeah, look, let me show you. That would be here.
See what I mean? So even if
so that wasn't solidified, yeah. But then there's that, yeah.
So that's why I was like, this reaction here made no sense to me because we didn't solidify anything. So it's like, how can you draw your fib tool, or how obviously you would have to be playing like scalp leg or something, but we didn't solidify. That's why I was like, all right, we should take out these highs here. And then the POI obviously noted this is actually a daily 50% inefficiency. So it's kind of like, it's obviously you have to play like the if this then that scenario, but it's like you're putting together a piece of puzzle and trying to make sense of the structure. So in the back of your mind, you know that monthly fill could produce a massive move. And so now you're trying to put together that daily swing and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that's why you correlate your structural levels. And that's why I think it's super important to just understand the continuation BOS in comparison to the reversal BOS.
Exactly, because people were talking about EU, I believe at this point, I believe they're like sells, and I was like, well, it makes no sense to me from this standpoint. If we're playing this leg up until once we solidify the leg, we're gonna more than likely reach. It's like almost every time. Once you have a solidified leg, unless you get structural disruption or something, we're gonna reach at least equilibrium. So when price was hovering around here and was down here, I'm like, all right, no, I'm still bullish on this pair just off the simple fact that we didn't reach a premium yet.
Yeah, and we could even get another COVID situation. Like go back to the COVID price action. We had like a stupid BOS and then it rocketed, I believe. Just go back to like 2020, March 2020. Right. Yeah, right there. Like zoom into that. How I don't remember exactly where it was. How this didn't become bullish until we had the bullish BOS, but there is still like order flow backing it up, kind of. And you could have a relatively equal scenario here where you see that type of whiplash, where you see the bullish BOS, and then you see the liquidity form, and then you see the transition occur, and this transition is what propels bullish sense. You could get something like that. This is kind of what I'm referring to when I tell you that we could take out previous liquidity, because that's what the initial bias was, which was the break of structure, high momentum, and then low momentum, that the liquidity was taken. Then you have the transition, and that transition is what's going to propel us for a big move. That's exactly what could happen again with EU now.
Yeah, it's super worrying. I mean, obviously with all this inflation, and now we have the monkeypox and all of that. That's what's very interesting. We're in an interesting area.
The thing is we're still going to increase rates a couple of times more. So
but like I was saying, USD, JPY, you guys should definitely watch out. I don't really trade this like that, but I just seen the potential from a long-term standpoint. Obviously, like you said, these transitions take time, because Tomas was telling me, obviously we have the low solidified after this turbulence point. So from a daily standpoint, we would need to take a high again to solidify this low, which then would serve this as liquidity for price to come back down, which I do get that. I just don't feel like on a monthly time frame basis that we're going to get another big monthly candle to come all the way back up, which it could happen, and then come back down. I feel like we could print a doji. What do we got? 1 month, or let me see on the monthly. So this monthly candle, 26 days, we could literally get just a huge wick and a big bearish engulfing or something, which would coincide with this whole entire narrative.
I think what's more alarming is that it's already done that much movement in 5 days. I think that's what's more alarming. I think that would probably give you a stupid closure at the end of the month.
Exactly. So very, very interesting pair. But obviously, if you're playing that counter trend bias, obviously low, high, getting a discount there. And then I literally had this trade and then I closed it because I didn't trust it. This was obviously EURJPY. And we solidified range, whatever range you want to play off of. I was playing this leg. Obviously I knew we were bearish, but how did I get this? I was playing.
Go back to H4, go back to H4. Actually, it was H2, I think, that you went to. So I usually go off of solidified points, and you can see solidified point there. I usually go off of solidified points.
And I literally had an entry and I just closed. I was like, because I don't even trade this pair like that. I was just being bored and just like, all right, I want to find a pair. But long story short, we had this mitigation, which gave me this leg here from a minor intraday standpoint, because I knew we wanted a pullback. And then obviously we had this low, high, retracement, high, retracement, high, and then I had a POI, and long story short, scalp. So we still had this leg intact, and scalp gave me something like, it was from this whole entire leg that was still very valid. We had this entire leg that I was playing. We came down into whatever POI, and then we broke kind of this scalp structure, which is very aggressive. But my entry literally was this LG candle that took out this right here. We came back into it, and then obviously I had my stop right there. And then when I was right here, I'm like, you know what, I'm not being logical, I'm not trying to play it. And then obviously you see what happened. And then obviously if you wanted to wait for a break and play something like down here, that would have made the most sense, but I like took the pair off my watch list.
Go a little bit more to the right on that one. On the one you just showed. Your entry was there, because technically this is correct from the entry perspective, but it's incorrect from the bias perspective. So I would say that if you're looking for that conservative, that wouldn't have happened until here.
Right.
Because that's you know, bouncing off of POI, and then you see internal break, which would signify unwillingness, and then you have scenario and invalidation. But either way, I mean, as long as you win and you know why you win. So this would be high, technically high risk, low risk, but more so less conservative and more conservative.
The reason why I was doing this is because I was talking about something with the set about EJ, and I was like, wow, this pair has some potential. So overall, obviously EURUSD and DXY are just very, and the only reason why I feel like this scenario, bro, could potentially work with this internal range actually taking all of this out is because we had the catalyst, which makes sense if you're going to play that bullish scenario, but now we have inefficiency, and we're going to feel inefficiency, obviously. And a lot of times when I see a move like this, I've seen it so many times, like you have a big,
you could see a fake out pretty much.
Yeah, you see a fake out, and you get now news coming to fill inefficiency, then it comes to 50% or whatever, and then you get some type of internal structural disruption, and then we just tank. So yeah, those are my shares for the day.
Yeah, cool. I appreciate that. Thank you. Cool. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, I do have a question. For the recorded Zooms, like let's say Dominic was talking and I had my mic on, do you guys hear like double? Like if somebody's talking and then my mic is on because my speakers are like right in front of my mic, do you guys hear double?
Yep.
Okay, I'm probably gonna buy some headset or something. Yeah, because that's an issue with OBS that I probably don't know how to fix. But the reason why you don't hear it on Zoom is because Zoom actually fixes that. But I'm probably gonna have to get some speakers or something. Not some speakers, I'm sorry, some headset or something like that. Cool. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, like Eric said, EU looks like reaccumulation. That's what I was saying before.
Imagine that. Yeah, initial potential move up, 1, 2. If we take liquidity out and we transition, that would really emphasize a bullish bias. Cool, yeah, so I'm gonna have to look. If anybody has some headset they can recommend, that would be cool too. But yeah, does anybody have any questions? Any more questions? And then see if not, we'll go ahead and end it off here. Yeah, man, it's good hearing from you. Cool, but yeah, we let's see what happens over the next week or so. And I feel like I say this every week, but I really thought this week was just gonna be like we've seen the move and now it's gonna move. But now I feel like next week is we're gonna see like the setup over the next 2-3 days, and then we might see the move. Because I'm still very confident in that bearish bias for the short term, but then after we take liquidity, that's when it's gonna get pretty interesting. Yep, probably around there. But yeah, and then some people have been asking me about one-on-ones. I usually do them Saturday mornings just because I don't really get many. So yeah, I like to do them Saturday mornings, my time, which is Central Standard Time. So yeah, if you guys can do like 7, 8, 9 in the morning on a Saturday, that would be perfect. Yep, just go ahead and send me a Discord message and I'll get back to you here in the next hour or so. Cool, but yeah, I appreciate you guys hopping on, and let's see what happens on Tuesday.